Ms. Driver?
Here.
He's here. Ms. Grillo?
Present.
Mr. Herbert?
Here.
Ms. Linthorst?
Here.
Ms. Long?
Here.
Mr. Mason?
Present.
Ms. O'Reilly?
Here.
Mr. Sawicki?
Here.
Ms. Williams-Galliano?
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of the Act, the Hopewell Valley Regional Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof communicated to the Hopewell Valley News, the Times, and the Trentonian on January 6, 2021. This meeting notice was also sent to Comcast Cable and Verizon Fios. The board reserves the right to enter into executive session during all meetings of the Board of Education. The meeting is being videotaped for the purpose of board review, future reference, preparation of the minutes, and viewing on Comcast Channel 19, Verizon Fios Channel 32, and the school district website, www.hvrsd.org. Would you please join me in the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I will request a motion to approve the minutes from the regular and closed meeting on July 19th, 2021.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? The motion carries. I will keep my comments extremely brief this evening, as I know we have a full agenda. I would like to thank Dr. Treese and Dr. Politzis and all of those who participated in and attended the panel discussion last week on returning to school procedures and returning safely. I'd like to officially welcome Dr. Vicki Politzis to our board table and wish you all the best in your new position of Director of Curriculum and Instruction. Thank you for stepping up, and we're glad that you're here. I'd also like to thank all of those who are prepping the schools and the buildings for our return to school, with a special shout out to our nurses. I know that they're working overtime, our custodians and facility staff, transportation, support staff, teachers, administrators, and all who are involved with these efforts. And then finally, I'd just like to say, please feel free to reach out to the board. We try to be as responsive as we can with regard to emails. We're happy to have you here for public comment, but we're available all of the time by email and look forward to your feedback at all times. With that, I will pass it off to Dr. Treese.
Thank you. I appreciate that. As President Linthorst shared, we do have a full evening, so I do want to dive right into my presentation. Mr. Calavita, do you mind pulling up the screen? Get settled. I just want to thank everyone for coming out tonight and for all of your emails, for coming to our panel discussion. We had over 600 people at one point that did log in. Over 1,000 people registered, but we did have that many people log in, and a number of people asking for the recording. I really thought it was important that you were hearing the same information that we were hearing as we meet with the healthcare professionals in the area, the Department of Health. We've met with our nurses, and I will go through what our process has been. But I thought it was only fair that the public was hearing what we were hearing as we were making those decisions, knowing that they were very fluid. As of the changes that were made recently with the governor's mandate. In addition to that, some of the other changes that came from the Department of Ed, which I'll talk about tonight during our presentation. Before we dig into that, though, I do want to just thank everyone in this room, sitting here. Also our teachers, our facilities folks. Tom Quinn is here tonight, and he'll be sharing some information with you. Our BA, some paraprofessionals, all of the folks, including the parents that trusted us and sent their kids to us this summer, and we did have quite a successful summer. Some of the highlights, our extended school year, which was longer than it normally runs, serviced over 200 kids, which is rare. That was up about 90 kids, right? Almost. Yes. So we were able to service those children. We also offered summer enrichment camps, and 103 kids attended those and availed themselves of that opportunity. And kindergarten camp was very well attended. We had 139 students attend our kindergarten camp, to the tune of us having to add some sections, so we're happy to have them all. We also will be starting our English as a second language camps this week. Fall sports are in full swing and practices are happening, and we've been holding open houses, summer bridge, and orientations in our buildings. So those things are being done. In addition to our facilities guys, which I should have mentioned here, getting our buildings ready for the start of school and working on some capital projects to make sure that our facilities are in good shape to receive you. So we accomplished a lot this year. That was this summer. But over the course of the year, we did a lot as a district. One of the things that we were able to accomplish right off, and I was one of those people that was kind of nervous about that and on the fence initially, we opened up right away and got kids back in school immediately. Even though it was in a hybrid, even though it was half a day, we were able to do that. And we were able to also start kids right away in sports programming, and we're able to run all of our seasons, even our intra-seasons, with little interruption. We had minimal cases of trace transmissions in our schools or on our school transportation, very minimal cases of that. And we had our parents, our staff, and the guardians that were responsible for the people they sent to our buildings, making sure that they were reporting any incidents of positive cases outside of school that we were unaware of, and keeping their kids home and keeping us safe in those regards, and staff members staying home if they needed to. And as a result of all of that, we did not have to shut down any schools due to a rise in cases. Yes, we had some people that had to quarantine, and we had to send students out. But again, those were very small cases, and we didn't have to shut down a building and disinfect, as some other districts faced this past year. And then we got to, at the end of the school year, we were able to open we were open 5 days a week. And I should say there were students that were going 5 days a week and full day, even while we're in hybrid, that needed it. Our special needs students we were bringing back as they needed throughout the year. And according to the health department, about 75% of our kids who are eligible to get the vaccine have at least one dose at this point. So we're in a good place because we've been working together as a community. So I want to say a really special thanks to not just to you all for supporting that, but also to our staff. I know a lot of folks have been sending emails to the board about vaccinating staff and can we require that. Legally, we can't require that staff get vaccinated, but I'm here to say that over 90% of our staff, and that's everyone, that's our bus drivers, that's our paras, our teachers, are vaccinated. And they did that without our pressure. They did that because they felt that was the right thing to do. Our facilities and our maintenance guys and ladies kept our buildings clean and running and going, even when we had to shut down a classroom and deal with disinfecting and sanitizing, making sure that our HEPA systems, our HVAC, all those things were functioning as they should be. They kept us open all year and all summer and made sure that we were safe. We managed to do that and also still have celebrations and have our graduations and our stepping up ceremonies and try to make things as special as we could and as normal as we could for our students. And that was a large part to our staff going over and beyond to try to make sure we created those experiences for our kids, whether they were in person or remote. And our teachers were innovative, they were diligent, and though remote learning was not ideal for anyone, including some of you parents that had those kiddos in your house while you were trying to work remotely, they were able to pull it off and provide remote instruction when that was necessary. We were able to support our at-risk populations. We talked about that just now, bringing them back, also providing them the extended school year as they needed. And our administrative team worked night and day to make sure that we were contact tracing, that we were planning for the next phases, that we were evolving in this very fluid situation, and adjusting to what was happening and what the mandates were as they were shifting and changing. And then finally, our bus drivers, our secretary, our support staff worked tirelessly, not just to do the job that we hired them to do, but to drive food for the food pantry on their breaks, when they were off, working extra shifts because we don't have enough bus drivers right now to cover the shifts that we have. People really went over and beyond the call of duty, to the point where that last bullet, which I'm very excited to say, we had very little learning loss. We got to the end of the year, and we were in a good place, in a better place than a lot of other school districts are in. So I owe that to this whole community coming together and working hard. So what we did was, during a very challenging time, we supported each other, even though we knew this wasn't ideal. We banded together and dealt with the safety guidelines. the masking, the hand washing, the reporting, keeping our kids home when they were sick. We did all those things, and we supported each other. And we also, some organic support groups just kind of developed where you all supported each other. And we have the single-parent group that came about. We started more sessions of Nurtured Heart because parents asked for those. And we brought in additional mental health support as was needed, for not just the students, for our faculty and for our parents as we needed that. And then I just talked about the food pantry. So we were able to do that together. And additionally, we were able to collaborate with a representation of all stakeholders at the building as we made those transitions. You communicated to us what was working, what wasn't, and we tried to evolve as best we could to make sure that we were meeting your needs. So the opening days of school, we're going to get there just like we have in the past. We will be launching or opening Encore so that you can see your child's schedule. You'll be able to see your bus schedule, your teams, all that exciting stuff that we wait for at the end of the year. We are planning on schedule to launch that August 26th. We'll open the Encore so you will be able to see those things. Staff will return to school September 1st, and our orientation for 6th and 9th grade will happen on September 2nd. So we are on schedule to accomplish all those things. Now, here's one of the elephants in the room that I know we want to talk about tonight. I sent everybody an email about the recommendations, and I'm saying the word recommendations, that the CDC has, which have frankly been in place the whole time we've been under this pandemic. There have been travel guidance about, kind of traveling to other states. Internationally, there's a whole nother layer, but I'm just talking about from state to state. These are the recommendations for what vaccinated folks should do and what fully vaccinated folks should do. This is not a mandate. What I'm asking is that we try to adhere by this as best we can so that we don't start the year having to lock down again. We really have to be diligent to try. Now, I know folks have planned vacations. We cross borders. I live in Pennsylvania myself. Some of that we can't control for, right? But if we are making decisions that we haven't made yet, like to travel, for example, I was going to Vegas to see my parents maybe scoot away for another weekend. Nevada is in lockdown again, and they're masking up, and it's red all over the West, but particularly in Nevada, Arizona, some of these states. So I've made a choice not to buy that ticket and do that now. So I'm asking that as a community, we continue to do these things because a decision that I make as I come in, and I go as a superintendent of school in the classrooms, I put other people at risk. I'm vaccinated, but I might be putting somebody else at risk with what I might be carrying, right? So what we've done so far is we've met with our school physician, we've met with our nurses in the health department. We've done this, and I've been in communication with them on a weekly basis. We've met with the district parent council to kind of talk about what was coming and what we thought might be coming with mask mandates or not. We've had many meetings about what kind of things the parents would need in order to get the information out and also support you through that process. And we've read every email that you've sent us, and then the Q&A that was provided on the night of the webinar. And we've held many meetings of committees of the reopening of school committee. I've met with the other superintendents across Mercer County, and because of our efforts, I'm sure that's why we finally got the governor to come up with a decision on whether or not we were mandating masks or not, and just not kind of leaving it up to us. And we continue to fight for some things, like I know the question is going to come up about remote instruction, which I'll talk about in a minute. We have been fighting those battles to try to make sure that we have options to move in this very fluid situation. So know that we are still, those efforts are still there. And we continue to monitor and adhere to any regulations that come out of the governor's office, our health departments, and the New Jersey Department of Ed. But again, knowing that those are fluid. I've already talked about the panel discussion. I have this slide in here because I will share this slide deck out with all of you. And these links that are hyperlinks here, the recording is here for the webinar if you were unable to watch it. A lot of what's guided at me as I've been trying to make this decision and talking to folks and reading all the information that you all have sent me in some of your emails is starting with the American Academy of Pediatrics guidance for reopening. That was the very first document I poured over. And they were very clear that they were in their recommendation that anyone that's age 2 or older, those folks, between that age of those unvaccinated kiddos, needed to be wearing a well-fitted mask in school. And they also contend, and so does our school physician, that a vast majority of children will be able to adhere to that, wearing a mask. Now, there are some instances where kids will need an exemption from wearing masks, and I'll talk to you about what those are in a moment. But the mask coverings are just one piece of something that we need to do to protect ourselves, which is quite frankly what we did last year, which is why we were so successful. And that's in addition to social distancing, whether you have a mask exemption or not, hand washing, and vaccination when you can, right? When you're eligible for that, trying to vaccinate when possible. So the mask exemptions. Anyone who gets a mask exemption in this school, and there aren't many, we've had a handful of students that do fall into this category, right, are those kids that really have a really diagnosed medical issue from a doctor that then goes to our medical doctor who will approve that child not wearing a mask, and then we may put another accommodation in place, which most kids we have, which is they wear a shield or they wear some alternative to kind of create some barrier between them, and quite frankly to protect them because they are also unvaccinated. But there are also exemptions such as if there's extreme heat indoors, right? Students, we can decide as a district that we will have the students take their mask off. We have air conditioning, so that hasn't been a challenge for us. If somebody becomes incapacitated, right, they pass out or they can't breathe or they're hyperventilating, they can take their mask off. When they're eating or drinking or doing anything else that requires them to remove their mask. Playing an instrument, we've been cleared to a point with the students putting on a covering on the instrument. Students have still worn masks while they're singing in our choir, but they can remove their face covering to drink or to eat. Anytime they're engaged in a high aerobic activity, any physical activity, in that case, they do need to be 6 feet apart. We try to encourage them to be further apart than that if we need to when they're engaging in, but in sports, of course, they have to take those masks off because they're engaging in that high level of physical activity. So those are the times when students can or somebody can take their mask off in our buildings. Otherwise, they need to be having a mask on. So here are the other guidelines that the CDC recommends for schools to stay safe. And these are all things that we had in place last year and we continue to have in place this year to make sure that we're being safe. These are all hyperlinks. You can click on these when you get the slide deck and dig into any of these a little bit further. And I will be putting bulleted information online like, how to wear a mask correctly, the hand washing protocols. I did post the suggested guidelines for travel, all of those things for you online. And then again, finally, staying home when you're sick and getting tested to ensure what you think you have is indeed what you have, and we can track the COVID virus in our schools. So these are all, again, the things that we already have in place, and then we will continue to have in place, I think. I think with these things still in place, we can have another successful start to our school year. So there were many questions in the Q&A about our facilities and our ventilation and our cleaning protocols. So I invited Mr. Quinn here to answer those questions for you. I wanted to make sure that you had the expert here in the room. And Mr. Quinn, I want to go ahead, move through your slides.
Sure.
You can let me know when you want me to move ahead.
Okay. So for the classroom, the locker rooms, and the cleaning and daily stuff like that, it's important to note that 5 years ago, we changed the cleaning methods that we utilize here in Hopewell.
Mr. Quinn, sorry to interrupt. Can you please speak into the mic? Thank you.
Sure. 5 years ago, we changed the way our cleaning was implemented throughout the district to a point where it's a system that I had noticed in University of Pennsylvania Hospital back in 2004, where they use microfiber cloths and microfiber pads, and nothing is ever cross-contaminated. So whatever rag is used in classroom A is put in a launder bag, and a different rag is then used for classroom B. So we already had this in place before COVID started, which made it a lot easier for us to handle any of the complications that came with it. It was a matter of just saying, okay, let's switch out that neutral cleaner for a disinfectant. Every classroom has the Medify Air HEPA filter stations in them, so that they're able to clean the air in the classroom about every 30 minutes. utilizing the HEPA filters. We run electrostatic sprayers at night because they are a safer form of disinfecting, and with electrostatic, it sticks to everything. Otherwise, we use eco-friendly cleaners and stuff. The restroom spaces are continually disinfectant. Every classroom and several locations throughout the hallways have hand sanitizing stations. And another important factor too is all of our water stations, our water fountains, are eco-friendly filtered bottle fill stations. Okay, we actually capped off the bubblers so that there is no possibility of anybody trying to drink out of a bubbler. And I gotta tell you, we are one of the very few districts around that can say that that is the case with all of our drinking fountains. We provide disinfecting wipes. We have hydroxyl generators, and if you came in, you saw that brown machine as you walked through right up here by the wall. That is what's called a hydroxyl generator. It has UV lights in it, and as the air passes through, the UV light kills all the bacteria and viruses and then exchanges the air back out. That machine is strong enough to thoroughly clean the air in a large gym in just about an hour or so. And that's what we used when we would have an outbreak. We would take so that it was making sure that our staff was protected. They would jump in a room, put that machine in, turn it on, and then they knew that a half hour, 45 minutes later, the air was clean and it was safe for them to go in and do any other sanitizing and disinfecting. And we will be running those in large capacity areas during the year this year. We've had plexiglass panels up throughout the district as needed in the high traffic areas. And all of our air systems are set to run at the maximum outside air as possible. And we are very fortunate, again, that over the years, a lot of our air systems were changed to what's called a direct outside air. So no air is going from one room to another. All the air comes in, goes out, and stays in the room. We don't take air from room A and pass it over to room B. You can change that slide. My HVAC staff has gone around and checked the function and quality of all the units. Like I said before, all the classrooms have direct air coming in from the outside. And almost every place the air is changed within at least 15 minutes. Complete air changes, that's the way it's set up. Now it runs on the CO2 sensor, but we set the CO2 sensors so that it just constantly brings in the outside air. And the CO2 also allows us to get a real feel for how well that's working. Because if we see CO2 numbers going up, then we know we're not exchanging enough air. All the units are started at least 2 hours prior to the start of the school day to get that air freshening up. So most of them usually come on around 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. And you can open windows, the staff can open windows to help with ventilation, judgment call as to, the type of day it is and the weather, of course. I think that's it on my slides. Any questions? Yes.
So if you have all of these great things in place, why?
We have to hold the questions.
Okay.
Sorry, we have to hold the questions.
All right, no problem.
Please hold on to it, though. We want to come back to it. Okay, also, there were some questions about the mental health supports that we're going to have in place during the course of the school year. So I have Ms. Bernardo here to talk about that for us as well.
Thank you, Dr. Treese. So last year, we took it very seriously that not only were we concerned about the academic components of our learners, but also the social-emotional impacts that were going to occur during this pandemic. Some of the things that we did was we had our school counselors and our child study teams available. They usually are available to our kids, whatever they need, but even more so, we made sure to check in with any of our children that were either upset or seemed at risk, and we made sure to provide small groups and as well as individualized counseling. We offer throughout the district social-emotional learning days to support those needs. We provided nurtured heart training for parents and staff, something very near and dear to my heart. We collaborate, and we're very fortunate to have comprehensive mental health services right around the corner, and they've been collaborating with us especially at the 6th through 12th grade level, to support social, emotional, mental health needs for our students that were in need of additional supports outside the realm of our counselors. We contracted with a really wonderful child life therapist, because one of the challenges during this time is that the counseling services outside of the school were virtual. And a lot of our learners struggle with that. So we actually found a child life therapist in the area who was willing to go and meet with children outside of the house and provide support for them in person, which was really special. We also contract and work closely with RSM Psychology. They're a group of psychologists who are in the Princeton area, and they assisted us to help with students who were in crisis. So if we needed someone to again, just have another set of eyes and ears on a student that we had concerns with, we would reach out to these psychologists, and they would work collaboratively with us and with the families. We're really excited because we're going to continue all of these support services this year, because we want to make sure, again, our children are in a really good place socially and emotionally, so that they're ready to learn, to reach their skills, right, their abilities. We're really fortunate we're able to use some of our funding, our federal funding that we received, to contract with a Rutgers licensed counselor. This is a clinical counselor, and this person will be on staff with us, and they will be with us full-time, and they will be supporting our students kindergarten through 12th grade. And these are just some of the things that they'll be doing with us. They'll be providing individual small group counseling for students who, again, are in need of that higher level of care. They will be available to do crisis assessments. So if we have concerns, we'll bring this counselor in, and they will help work with our teams to assess whether or not the child is in need of a hospitalization or an intensive outpatient, and they'll work closely with the family to support that. They'll be collaborating with families to help coordinate services such as intensive outpatient and or hospitalization, because we are in a national crisis right now with mental health with our youth. So we're trying really hard to have these extra supports, and I truly feel having this staff member on hand 5 days a week is going to really help us to just provide that extra level of support for them, and not only for them, but also for their families. They'll also work closely with our teams when the student is re-entering. So if we have a child that maybe does need an intensive outpatient and they're returning to the school, they will be an active participant in our team to help transition the child back successfully into our school environment. And then they also will be providing professional development on mental health services to support our students kindergarten through 12th grade.
Thank you. And the importance of the mental health support. One of the other guidelines or recommendations by the Academy of Pediatrics, American Academy of Pediatrics, is that our kids need to be in school. And partly because of the rise in mental health issues we've saw in our kids, the struggle with online and remote learning for a lot of our kids. Some kids did thrive. We have to admit that. But there were kids that really struggled, and we ended up trying to bring those kids back during the course of the year to get them back to some sort of normalcy, which our kids are really struggling with right now, is the way they've been learning and not having that socializations that we know our kiddos need. So thank you for helping work through that with us, Mr. Nardo. So initially, and I think that this will still work for us, the governor had made a mandate. We were kind of, carving out what we thought the phases of this year would look like. And this is what I've prepared for you, because we were examining, I know a lot of you were talking about the mask optional for those who were vaccinated. And then the game changed for us. Things were, got so bad with the Delta variant that it just really wasn't something we felt comfortable that we could start the year with. So we will be starting the year with everyone, pre-K to 12, wearing masks in our building, our kids, our staff. Our buses were already mandated to, like other public transportation, that you had to wear masks indoors. Indoors, masks will be required. Outdoors, with social distancing, kids can go mask optional. They can have their mask breaks. We know that our sports teams will be playing. When they're physically playing, they will have their mask off. Indoors, when they're playing, their mask can be off, but when they're seated indoors, they need to have on their masks. Phase 2, which I'm hoping that we can get to here about a mid-year, if not sooner, and that'll be determined by us being in green for a while, the health department giving us that clearance, and then the governor also would have to, lift this mandate and allow us some flexibility. I would like us to go to a mask exemption where we know if you're vaccinated, you can move into that mask exemption. So that's going to require your support as parents to self-report that information to us that your child has been vaccinated, and for our staff that they have been vaccinated. Because right now there's HIPAA laws around that, and I can't demand that of my faculty, and we would need you to share that information with us so that we make sure we get all that information. I'd like to start that sooner than later. Some of you have already received, if you have your children participating in sports and extracurricular activity, we're asking you to share that information with us now to also help us keep from shutting down teams. If we know that kids are vaccinated, they are treated very differently than if they're unvaccinated in having to quarantine. And that just like that travel guidance for if you're vaccinated and you don't have symptoms, you can continue and monitor your symptoms. If you're unvaccinated, then you have to go into quarantine. So if we have this information and we can get to that next level where we can say, mask optional for those who are eligible for vaccination and who have been vaccinated, we can make that move. And then finally, hopefully we get to phase 3 before this year's out. I hope that we get to this place where everyone can be mask optional in all of our grades, because we have most of us vaccinated and we've slowed this virus down to a point where we can feel safe to say that. So the quarantine guidance is contact tracing will be just like it was last year. If we are fully masked indoors in spaces, and now we have to go to 3 feet social distancing in our classrooms. We can't do 6 feet if we bring everyone back. The health department, the CDC guidelines are okay with that. We can do the contact tracing within that radius if we're masked and we're maintaining that social distance. For vaccinated individuals that have no symptoms after an exposure, they can return without quarantining, monitoring whether or not they come up with symptoms. If they have symptoms, they still need to quarantine, right? But they still need to be masked, and we also have to monitor and keep an eye on those breakthrough cases. If you're an unvaccinated individual and you are exposed in our buildings, our health department, or you get exposed somewhere else, can put you in quarantine from anywhere to 7 to 14 days. And that will be driven by the health department. And students who are sent into quarantine by the district will receive remote instruction. Now, I'm able to say this to you now because just a couple days ago, the New Jersey Department of Ed, and a lot at the prompting of us school leadership saying, well, if we quarantine a kid, if we send a kid home, you're saying we can't give them remote instruction. So we can offer them some sort of virtual learning or instruction remotely if the health department says we have to quarantine and they say we have to quarantine a class. Those students can receive, and they've been very specific about that, they can receive remote instruction, but this does not allow us an option like we had last year where parents could select for remote. It would have to be something that you were being quarantined. On the buses, again, the masks were always required on public transportation, and that did include our school buses, even before the governor's mandate of wearing masks indoors. We will not be able to social distance on the bus. So if you elect to place your children on the school buses, once we get to full capacity, we will not be able to social distance. We couldn't add additional buses if we wanted to spread kids out. We are struggling finding enough buses to carry the runs we need to carry right now. There's a bus driver shortage in the state of New Jersey, really nationally. So we're going to do our best to everybody who wants a seat will have it. But we will not be able to promise social distancing on those buses. Students will have to wear masks on our buses if they're going to ride our school buses. And then contact tracing will remain in place there as well. We will maintain seating charts in on those buses so we know where kids are seated to help us do that contact tracing. And we will be sending surveys. I know that you've been receiving surveys from your principals asking who's going to ride the bus and who's not, so we can kind of plan accordingly for some parents that might say, you know what, I'd rather just drive my kid. So if you're deciding that you'd rather just drive your children, please let us know, because that will help us in our planning. We will still be limiting guests into our building and parents and folks visiting our buildings. Of course, we will still do in-person meetings occasionally with our parents and our student groups, but we're going to try to limit that just to ease us with contact tracing. We usually are very open buildings and we invite you in and there's in and out. We had to be tighter with that last year. We're going to have to continue with that just a little longer so that we make sure that anyone, who is in our buildings, we can trace them if there is an exposure and find out who we need to reach out to make sure that, you're self-quarantining and getting yourself tested. The drop-off protocols will remain the same for your buildings. Your admin will reach out to you about those protocols, whether there's a table out front where you can leave something, where you can leave items to drop off if your child forgot something or you need to drop it off. And again, I just stated that we need to make appointments, but we also need to wear masks in the buildings when you're indoors. Classes. We are going to do our best to do 3 feet apart, and anywhere we can't do 3 feet apart, we're going to have plexiglass between children. We're going to have children facing away from each other, like in the lunchrooms. We're going to do our best to try to maintain that space as best we can with everyone coming back to our buildings. Outside spaces will be utilized, weather permitting. We have ordered tents. We're going to do our best to get the tents back. But we also always have had outdoor classrooms in a lot of our campuses. But we are trying to get those tents back so that we can have some additional area where kids can get out of the sun and be in the shade and be outdoors. We already talked about the doors and windows being open when temperature permits us to do that. And Mr. Quinn has already shared our cleaning protocols with you. And the staff and students will still be encouraged to follow that hand washing hygiene to make sure that we're staying safe in that regard. And seating charts will be maintained so that we can do contact tracing in our classrooms as well. And the same for lunches, social distance at least 3 feet apart. Again, for those places like the high school, which has a unit lunch where kids are kind of all over the building, where we can't maintain a seating chart, we're going to have other protocols, which is what we did last year, having students sit in areas where there's cameras, where they're clearly visible, so that we can use those also to help track kids when they're kind of moving about at the secondary level. A little easier to control at the middle and in the elementary schools. The building principals will be sending you more information about their protocols in their lunchrooms because each space is different. Tollgate Grammar is a different size in Bear Tavern than Stony Brook. So they all have slightly different protocols based on the size of their building. So they'll be sharing that with you. But the bottom line is we're going to be able to separate those kids as best as possible and know where they are so that we can trace them. But the good news is we did serve lunch and snack last year. Kids did eat in our buildings all year, and we had no issues. So I'm still confident that following all the things that we're doing, that we should be okay. But we do have things in place. If we do need to track kids, we will be able to track them. And lunch is, again, free this year for anyone who wants it. A lot of that will be prepackaged to eliminate, kind of kids reaching over things, touching things, food being handled by various students. And in many buildings that those students will still be pre-ordering their food to kind of maintain everything in a packaged, a little package set. We already talked about transportation. I must have had this slide in twice. Or did I go back? I think I must have had it in twice. I did leave something out, though. I'm noticing that I didn't talk about students being allowed to ride other students' buses. In the past, we've allowed students to ride to another friend's house for a play date or for someone's. We cannot do that this year because, as we already shared, we're going to have a hard time social distancing on the bus and making sure that we have enough room for the kids that are supposed to be on the bus, and again, also with the seating charts and the contact tracing. So we won't be able to allow students to ride each other's buses this year. Okay, the sports and extracurricular activity. Thank you again. We sent out a letter to some students already, have responded. If you're willing to voluntarily tell us if your child is vaccinated. And this will help to keep us from shutting down sports teams as best we can. If we find out that which kids are vaccinated, we deal with that very differently, or the health department does, versus a child who's unvaccinated. So sharing that information is indeed helpful to us. But we are still following the NJSIAA guidelines for now. They are the same as they were last year. They may evolve. But right now, it's still that students who are engaged in the strenuous physical activities can remove their mask. Last year, I think we even had our volleyball team still wearing it. That includes them, too. They can take their mask off while they're physically playing, even inside the building. But when they're not playing inside the building, they would need to put their mask on and say they're sitting on the bench. We do not want to limit our sporting events and our, quite frankly, our musical events, our plays and those sorts of things to our parents, right? You go to another school district and parents are allowed to come to games. We don't want to keep you from going to those as well. If you're outside, masks are optional. We're asking that when you're outside, that you socially distance, that you try to make sure that you're kind of adhering to that, staying apart from people that aren't part of your family, so that we don't cause an outbreak just by us coming to visit our games. And then also, if you come inside to see some of our games, you will be asked to wear a mask inside. And the cleaning protocols will still be in place for our weight rooms, our gyms, and we are asking that kids social distance in those spaces. So just a quick reminder, if you're a guest at any of our events, and we are going to have visual performing art events this year, we're asking that you do wear a mask, you social distance inside, that you're social distancing outside. This is especially for our students that like the dog pound, and they like to get in there and shout and scream and spread aerosols. We need to spread out. And then we're asking that, that parents, you remind your students to just do that. I know they want to have fun, but we're asking them not to create an issue where we have an outbreak while we're having fun. So I want to just end with this, that, it's been a tough 2 years. It really has been. And we've gotten through a lot of it together. We've gotten through a lot of this with a lot of fear of why are we even opening the schools, to we're at a place now where I feel confident that we've test-driven all of this stuff. We know it works, and all of it together works. You can't leave out pieces of this protocol, and we have the successful year we had last year. I'm encouraging folks to do these things, not just here, but outside of here, because we are just a little, everything that happens on the outside happens here. So if we're doing those things here and then we go outside and we do something else, that's how we bring exposure and outbreaks and all those things to our schools. And if you can, get vaccinated, because that's going to help as well. Because the bottom line is, I don't want us to have to lock down our schools again. It's going to be a slow reaction by the state, by the Department of Ed, to if we do have an outbreak and have to shut down, them saying, okay, well now you can go remote. It's going to be a process for that. And I don't want us to get to that point. Our kids belong in school. They need to go back to as much normal life as they can, and they need to get back to learning. And I don't want us to have any interruption of that. I don't want any one child to have interruption of that if we can help it. So that's all I have for my presentation. I'm going to stop now.
Thank you, Dr. Trees, for that presentation. Oh,
I was going to say, Mr. Calavita, you want to turn that? Oh, we should leave it on in case I need to go back to a slide. Yeah. All right, go ahead.
I'd like it to open it up to board members for any questions that they may have for Dr. Trees, or also for Mr. Quinn or Ms. DiNardo as well.
Hi. So I have a couple of comments and then a question. So, am I on?
Oh, speak right in.
Oh, yeah, right, like that, okay. Debbie O'Reilly. So I realize that we don't have a choice because it's mandated that all students have to wear masks. But I like that we have made the choice to have, our contract with Rutgers Behavioral Health to come in and can deal with any issues or help deal with any issues that arise because of the masking, because it's not ideal. Kids don't naturally want to or should have to wear masks. It stinks. So from, some of the emails that I have read that have come in, and, as a teacher, some of the things I've seen, the problems with kids wearing masks, it's nice that we have people on hand full-time to try and work out some of those things as we go through the pandemic, and then hopefully be done with masks. The question I had was about home instruction while quarantining. And we may not know the specifics for that, but I'm wondering what that would look like for individual students, not when it's a whole class, but maybe individual students and at the different levels. What would that be like?
So Paula, and you can tag team with me on this. If a student is too medically fragile, and we have some students that fit that category, right, or can't come to school, and they have a doctor's approved doctor's medical reason for that, they would go through the Director of Pupil Services, Dr. Wenger, and then we provide home instruction. Home instruction is different from the remote instruction that we had last year, and that would be set up by Paulette. Anything I'm leaving out?
No, that's right. So we received the medical note from the parents, the child's doctor. And then that goes to our physician who reviews it to approve it per New Jersey code. And then once that's approved, then my office will coordinate with the parents, will hire and contract with a home instructor, and they'll receive basically one-to-one instruction in all core academics. They'll be following all of the curriculum and the activities that are done in the homeroom and in their classes, but just done virtually for the child that is medically fragile.
So if they're quarantining, okay, that was what my question was about. How similar is it to that when they're quarantining? If if they have to quarantine because they're unvaccinated, and they will get home instruction, what would that look like?
Right, so thanks to the New Jersey Department of Ed, we as a district now can provide a virtual option. So that can be a kid, if it's one or two kids, like say they happen to be on the track team, or the cross-country team. They can now Zoom in based on what they've asked. Now, for elementary, that may not be ideal, right? Pre-K to 5 may not be ideal to Zoom in to a classroom where kids are up and moving and going through stations and in and out of a classroom. So for that, we have in place a subs for buildings where they can be on virtually with students, and then teachers can kind of check in. So we do have a plan for that for when that happens. If they go quarantine. So
Yeah.
we can use what we used last year, only in that context.
Right, I was bringing that up because I'm thinking about how a teacher would have to pivot at the last minute for one student, how that would work. Would they, I like what you said, that they would check in, and so maybe they would get a certain amount of hours of almost like a home instruction, right?
Right, and secondary
Possibly,
works
or-
very differently from elementary, right? Yeah, I mean, if you're in an AP physics class, zooming into an AP physics class may look very differently than, of course, a kindergarten class. So we can work with the teacher to accommodate those students. Now, if a whole class goes out and quarantine, that's very easy. We all go virtual. And we do have the technology to do that.
Any other questions from board members? Okay, seeing none, we will say thank you, Dr. Treese and Ms. DiNardo and Mr. Quinn, and we will move on to the public comment period. Members of the public are invited to address the board on any matter for a maximum of 3 minutes during this portion of the meeting. You are asked to state your name, address, and municipality. In response to your comments, the Board of Education may respond or direct the superintendent to do so. The board may also opt to take the matter up at a future meeting so that the matter is researched by district administration. Members of the public who intend to participate in public comment, we ask that you sign in there on the podium prior to speaking. If it's not there, then you won't need to sign in. We're not sure if the pad is there. Is it there, Dr. Patel? Thank you. This will assist us with our record keeping. Public comment is now open. If you care to speak, please come to the podium.
Hi, I'm Nicole Klein. I live in Hopewell Township, Reservoir Road. Mandates on masks don't give me a pass to stay silent. I'm here to advocate for mask choice in school. I have concerns about my children wearing a mask for a prolonged period of time. My concerns are based on my own experiences, paired with 47 studies I've read, and I'm happy to share with the board. Masks have been a medical experiment during this pandemic, and the science isn't settled regardless of the local opinions we heard last week. Executive Order 251, and I'm paraphrasing here, says that all public schools must maintain a policy regarding mandatory use of face masks with some exceptions, including when doing so would inhibit the individual's health. So with the recognition by the state that there are health risks with masks, I have a couple questions. Is the district required to provide parents with informed consent outlining the known health risks? Is the board ready to take on the liability for damage caused to children from forcing them to wear a mask for 8 hours a day? And has the board considered allowing mask choice in the classroom while the kids are learning to minimize the amount of time they have to sit in a mask all day? Two basic questions we haven't had answered yet. Where's the data and reporting that supports mask mandates contributing to a decrease in COVID transmission in schools? Where's the data and reporting that prolonged mask wearing does not cause any risk to health to children? I respect everyone's choice in the matter, but I think where there is a risk, there should be choice. and I do not consent. Medical information is highly private and protected by law. Unfortunately, we've become accustomed to overstepping people's privacy and looking at people as vaxxed or unvaxxed, masked or unmasked, and asking very personal questions and making judgments about their decisions. I wasn't very worried about it until the NJEA conducted a training session last week to train teachers on how to speak to others, including children at school, and try to convince them to get vaccinated for the COVID-19 vaccine and ensure they're safe. How's a teachers union possibly in any position to understand the complex nature of these brand new vaccines nor the safety of them with children? They also introduced an app called Reach to use to record these conversations, including the child's name, their vaccination status, and any other information that took place in that conversation. They even have a $250 gift card incentive to use the system. So yes, I trust teachers to educate our kids on academics, but they're in no position to give medical advice to students. It also leads me to ask what private medical information about my own child could possibly be stored in a random system called Reach, and where is that information shared and why? We're swerving off course in New Jersey, and I think we're asking way too much of our educators. These conversations are private, and they should be taking place at home, not in the school. As a matter of record, I do not consent to any member of the district submitting my child's private and personal medical data into any app or any database. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Klein.
Hi, I'm Patricia Johnson. I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, I'm a nurse, and right now I'm running for the Assembly. And I am here to represent parents who have called me and come to me because they have asked for support. We have a duty to the parents, each of them, and to the children in this township and in every township, demanding that they wear something that is not proven to be better than going without needs to be seen and not heard. We have supported evidence from the UNICEF being one, and I'm sure you all have heard of UNICEF, saying that it is not true that masks are better than or help any better than if they come without. And our children need to be able to live a life, see a face, breathe on their own, and not have a mask over them. I feel strongly about the fact that we have civil liberties and they're being broken, and we have attorneys that are now working on this. We have a doctor in Indiana that is willing to come to New Jersey to talk not just to you, but to the governor. He has done a tremendous amount of work on this. He has approximately 600 to 700 pages of documentation, and I believe it should be read because right now you're not giving parents anything to see. You're telling them that this has to be done because the governor says it, but are you aware that we have schools that are not following this? This is not, it's what you're saying needs to be done, doesn't need to be done. You have a choice. These are tax-paying parents. They want a choice. If you want to give some parents the opportunity to have their kids wear them, let them wear them. But let the parents who choose that they don't want their children in a mask and they don't want a vaccine to have that. I'm sorry, another parent gave me her 3 minutes, so I'll be more than willing to Catherine, can you stand up to let them know? So therefore, I think it's important. You also need to know that if you're going to wear masks, that every 2 hours, by OSHA regulations, you have to take a pulse ox on every single child that has a mask on. That is mandated. I want to know who's going to document them, who's going to take them, and who's going to, they have to be open records for parents.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Johnson, for your comments. We're not allowed to cede our 3 minutes of time to someone else, but we appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Ann Kalasa. I live in Hopewell on Van Dyke Road. I'll write my name after. It's my understanding that the mask policy is mandated by the state, not by the Board of Ed. So to me, it's counterproductive for us to be discussing that here because it's up to Governor Murphy. Let me know if I'm wrong, but that's the way I understand it. The questions I had were more specific in that when the quarantine for travel, if I know that it's a recommendation, it's not required, but I think more parents would be taking that opportunity to quarantine their children for the 7 days after travel if there was remote instruction. And I wasn't sure if that was confirmed here. I know you will get it if you're forced to quarantine due to exposure, but will you also get it if you went on a family vacation to Disney? My family will not be taking any vacations. We run a sports club and deal with COVID exposures and contact tracing and all that. So I also know how much of this is controlled by the Department of Health and that the school only has so many options. So whether we agree with that or we don't agree with that is a separate conversation, but I do know that you're only allowed to do so much, and I thank you for all that you're doing to keep our kids in school.
Thank you, Ms. Colasso. We appreciate it. Anyone else for public comment?
Sorry. I'll just put my name.
Hi, I'm Suzanne Trowline, and I live in Pennington, New Jersey on East Welling. As a parent, community member, and a former educator, I'm coming to you today to ask that you really listen. Listen to the parents that are feeling like we're not being heard. I'm speaking tonight on behalf of a lot of parents that could not be here or are too scared to speak up. They're scared because they may be bullied themselves, or their children may be bullied or ridiculed. I'm going to go way over my 3 minutes and cry. I'm sorry. So please know that my words are for every other parent here that's not speaking tonight. First, I want to start and acknowledge that we're living in a world of fear. Dr. Treese even mentioned that earlier. People, including myself, are fearful for many reasons. The reasons are not always the same or shared, but the fear is real and present. To clarify for this meeting, I'm going to be speaking on behalf of parents dealing with school-age children and teenagers. Last year, some people chose to keep their children home, and some chose to bring their children back in person to school. Both sides had their own fears and also had options. The students stayed home, may have been scared of getting the virus or getting a loved one sick, or scared to send their children to school wearing a mask for extended period of time, or opted to keep them home. The parents that send their kids back to school may be feeling that they were risking their children being exposed or risking the short-term effects the masks could have. I know people fall into both categories personally. Any way you cut it, I believe the majority of the people felt some sort of fear. No fear was wrong, and all are very valid. The bottom line is that our district did their best to navigate people's fears and feelings and did what they thought was best for our students and staff 1 year ago. You all did this with the information you were given at the time to help alleviate a lot of those fears and keep people safe. A lot has changed in the last year, a lot. I'm urging you to please take some time to really think about how you can come from a place of understanding that there is a very large group of parents that are fearful to send their children back to school wearing a mask for 6 to 7 hours, 30 to 35 hours a week. There are studies upon studies that show the masks do not protect the spread of the virus, and there's also a large amount of evidence that show the short-term effects by wearing masks. We keep hearing the kids do so well with masks, the kids are so resilient. Have you guys ever actually asked a child how they feel about wearing a mask for 7 hours? To be completely transparent, I didn't ask my own 8-year-old for a very long time last year. I believe that is because I was very afraid of what I would hear, and I didn't want to open up a conversation I didn't think I could have an outcome for and change the outcome for. Once I did finally ask, here's what she said to me on a few different occasions. I can't understand my teacher when she talks to me. I have to talk louder for my teacher to hear me, and it makes my throat hurt. Sometimes I feel dizzy in school. I don't breathe right when I have to wear a mask. I can't tell when my friends are smiling at me or if they're sad or mad. There are many people that will not consent to the masks and do not feel safe sending their children to school. We need everyone to we need everyone to be represented, everyone in our community, and everyone should be provided options just like we did 1 year ago. We're asking for options and we're asking for choice. I'm all about choice. I'm not judging anyone for choosing what they feel is right for their own child. I have 20 seconds left. I am simply advocating that we all get to choose what's best for our own families. So for the record, I do not consent to Executive Order 251. Tollgate's theme this year and last year is "You Matter," and I know many schools have adopted similar phrases encouraging inclusion. Unfortunately, right now, many people in the community that I personally know and are not speaking up tonight do not feel like they matter or are considered when reopening school. Not everyone feels like their fears are being heard. So in closing, I have three questions. How as a board are you advocating for us at the state level when it comes to masks being optional, like many New Jersey districts currently are doing right now? When students arrive to school without masks, whose parents have submitted letters of non-consent to the masks, how will they be welcomed into their classes? How, as the Board of Education and school community, do we make everyone feel like they matter, like they've been heard, and that they feel included? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Troutwine.
Hi, my name is Alyssa Rowan. I live on Fanning and Pennington, and I'm going to speak off the cuff because I didn't expect to get up here, so I thank everyone for listening. My biggest concern tonight was I heard the mask for one thing. I thought I was coming here to talk about the mask, but what I really heard was you're going to be promoting vaccinations was at the top of your list. So I really have a problem with that. I'm religious. I'm Kingdom First. I don't know much about the shot. I know it's experimental, and I know that some people might want it, some people might want it. It's America. I think we have a choice, and I really have a problem with hearing that you're going to be promoting vaccinations in our schools. I'm surprised. I was really surprised to come and hear that tonight. I thought it was America and we had freedom and choice, and now I'm going to have my elementary school kids thinking they're different. I have to protect them in their future. I don't know what these vaccines are going to do. So to hear that my kids are going to be treated differently, I want to know why that is. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name's Craig Lowe. We live in Titusville on Forest Hill Drive. I'm here today to urge you to reconsider the mask mandate and provide an alternative option to parents who want a choice. Although it wasn't ideal, the choice last year was that, kids could do virtual learning, and I say it was far from ideal, but again, that's no longer available. So we're hugely concerned about the physical and mental well-being of our children, having to wear a mask for up to 8 hours a day. The reality is that children are, really unlikely to become seriously ill from COVID. Statistically, they're more likely to die in a car accident. According to New Jersey government health statistics, there have been 0 deaths from COVID in school-age children from between February 2020 and July 2021. So that's 0 deaths. So we feel strongly that proposed measures are excessive and wholly unnecessary. Furthermore, we've heard lots of people talk about it, but there's little, I've seen little or no proof that masks are effective and safe, but read lots of studies that say the polar opposite. There was a study in Florida that was looking at face masks of children, and on those masks were found pneumonia, E. coli, meningitis, TB, and many more things. And it horrifies me to think that my kids could be sat there sucking things in off a mask, and that's way worse than contracting COVID itself, because no one has died from COVID. And, like Nicole, 40 more studies that we have, and we'll share that afterwards. I mean, the reality is flu itself is far more dangerous for kids than COVID. More children die from flu every year than have died from COVID to date. And that's with a vaccine readily available and always has been. Right? So no one has suggested that we mask our kids for flu. So it's totally illogical to me why we're now asking kids to wear a mask. The other thing is there's such a huge disparity in how COVID situations are handled, and this is, by the government. You can't control everything, guys. This weekend there were tens of thousands of people at a concert in Atlantic City, all without masks. okay? And then our kids can go to the grocery store or to a restaurant without a mask. So why do they need one in school? Regarding the impact on mental health, and it is really good to hear the positive things that are being sort of put forward by the school, but the CDC reported a 51% increase in suicide attempts in children in 2020, which to me sort of speaks to the impact of the pandemic. Yet, from my perspective, we continue to put our children in compromising situations now with masking in schools, where the kids are conditioned to believe that the air is toxic and everyone around them presents a danger. And honestly, what I've actually heard tonight horrifies me even more. Reading those slides, someone has a vaccination, then they can take their mask off, right? It's very evident that people who are vaccinated can still get COVID. They can still transmit COVID. So why on earth would you discriminate against children who have not had a vaccination? It totally beggars belief, and I'm really disappointed to see those things written on those slides. I went off script there because I wasn't expecting to see that horrifying stuff. Ultimately, we want to know who's going to be legally responsible if our children get sick from wearing masks. Will we be suing the school board? Will we be suing the state? And we want choice, as I say. If kids can go into restaurants and, okay, they wear masks in high traffic areas, so why in school can they not do the same thing? In hallways, in lunch halls, I get it. But then when you go into a classroom, you're sat at a desk, why not be able to sort of take it off? They're not endangering other people. So in short, I want to reiterate that we do not consent, and we want to know what the school will be doing to accommodate us. We're aware of a lawsuit being filed against the mandate, and we're aware...
I'm sorry, your time has expired.
But I'm going to finish my last line because that's a little bit rude.
I'm sorry, your time has expired, sir. That is the rule, our policy and our rule.
Okay, but there's a mic here, so I'll keep reading it.
If you want to, if you would like to continue, I would appreciate it if you would email us with the remainder of your comments.
Well, the literal last line is, my question is, because you guys are elected by the community...
Sir, we're going to have to remove you
will you be
from the
pushing...
meeting.
That's fine, but we want you to... My wife will read the last line.
Thank you.
Basically, there's a lawsuit being filed against this mandate, and we're aware of other school boards who are actually standing up for the people in their community and advocating for parents and a choice for what they do with their children. So we want to know is, are you going to be supporting us and pushing for our right to choose?
Thank you as well. Do we have anyone else for public comment?
Hi, good evening. My name is Catherine Fulmer-Hogan, and I am a resident of Hopewell Township. And I am here tonight with what appears to be an unpopular decision in this room, and that is to thank this entire board and all the staff who worked very diligently on the return to school plan. I appreciate you following the mandate from the CDC and the governor, because if we want to talk about real issues and discrimination, what I will tell you is that black children, of which I am the mother of, are 65% more likely to die of the coronavirus, despite representing only 15% of the population. That's what keeps me up at night. That's what worries me. And so I appreciate that our students will be returning to school with masks. And also, if we want to have a conversation about discrimination, I can go there with you all day long. But today I'm actually here because I have a question about the travel protocols. And I'm approaching this from a lens of equity as someone who serves on multiple equity councils in this district. I realize and I support the protocols, but I'm also a resident of this community that has conventional health care. I do have concerns about the testing before and the testing after for all the families in this community who do not have conventional health care, and for whom that could represent a large financial burden. I know as fact that those tests, when outside of the approved funding by the federal government, which is not exposure, not sick, are, Robbins and Ewing are $140, so that's $280 per student. So I'm just curious if the district is working on some sort of list where these tests are cheaper, or options for community members, if there's a way to subsidize that. Also, transportation can be an issue for folks. So that, that would be my question this evening. And again, I thank you all so much for your hard work.
Thank you, Ms. Hogan.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for allowing us to be here this evening. I, too, would like to thank you for the efforts you guys made. I am a healthcare worker. I did not have the option of being home with my child last year. I worked through the entire pandemic. I specifically work in infection control. So,
Ma'am, I'm sorry to interrupt. Could you just provide your name,
I'm
address,
sorry.
and municipality?
I apologize. I was heading out of the gates. My name is Kate Corriero. I live in Hopewell. My son attends Bear Tavern.
Thank you.
So I can certainly commiserate with you all. I know making difficult decisions regarding protecting families and students is a grueling process. I've been yelled at this past year and a half. I've been told I haven't protected people's families. I'm putting their lives at risk. I'm killing their grandma. I've gone to work every day. I've had to convince people to take plastic bags off of their bodies, off of their feet, off of their heads. I've had to educate everybody on proper PPE to keep them safe. I've had to shut down my hospital multiple times and have family members yell at me that I'm keeping them from seeing their family members. So I truly understand the struggle you guys have had. I am very grateful for the efforts you guys made. I am proud to be a member of the Hopewell community and have my child attend your school. That being said, I'm really asking, like all these other parents have said, to please support those parents and families in this community that would at least like to have their voice heard considering mask choice. As many other people have said, there's not much data out there supporting the efficacy of surgical masks. There's a lot of data out there, OSHA related. They mentioned that every 2 hours. I was not aware myself of the checking the pulse ox, but I will tell you that if the mask is moist or wet, I have to take it off my work and I have to provide them a new one. Okay, there's a difference between airborne precautions, droplet precautions. COVID generally requires a droplet precaution. That means I sneeze, I cough, it travels 3 feet and falls to the ground. Sometimes with aerosolizing procedures, singing, playing musical instruments, yes, that particle might hang in the air more, but generally we see a droplet precaution, okay? But if you really wanted to protect against COVID, the best kind of PPE that would be required for our students would be an N95 respirator that has a seal check. That requires fit testing for these students. So wearing this, it makes us feel better. I get that. I think if a family member wants their child to wear them, they absolutely should. I think you guys are doing a fantastic job with disinfection and sterilization. I commend you on the expensive endeavor you put forth with your air filtering systems. I mean, that is fantastic. What does that yellow sign mean? I'm sorry. 30 seconds, okay. Anyway, I really do ask that you advocate for the families here. I could point you towards all sorts of evidence, studies. New Jersey Department of Health has an excellent website with all of the data. You guys mentioned the increase of the Delta variant. Yes, it is increased. Hospitalizations have not increased to any sort of level where they were prior. Deaths have not increased to any sort of level as they were prior. Who's correct? Not a single child has passed away from COVID. Okay, I mean, I have all the data here. I'd be happy to share it with you. There have been 63,000 cases of COVID in the state of New Jersey since the beginning of this pandemic. So please, could we, after this, I know you're going to take the questions, I will stop, but would you all please at least provide us with an answer of what your plan is going forward to advocate for the family members that do want choice? I know you're under the pressure of the mandate, but what is your answer to us as families for supporting those who want a choice?
Thank you, Ms. Corriero. Anyone else for public comment?
Hi, my name is Jacqueline Petra, and I live in Vinoy Avenue here in Pennington, and I just ran down the road. My phone's been blowing up because there's a vocal minority who is anti-mask, and I guess I'm single-handedly kind of speaking for masks and supporting the board and the state, I guess, because the board, it's not your decision about masks, it's the state. I think that the comments that kind of threw me over the top was that there have been 0 pediatric deaths with COVID. I listened to the Board of Health meeting the other night, and they were emphatic about the fact that COVID has not been kind to children, especially of late. In fact, 354 children under the age of 18 have died from COVID since the start of the pandemic.
Excuse me, you're out of order. Please continue, Ms. Petrin.
Okay, so since a lot of this has been anecdotal stories, I'd like to tell a personal story that's hopefully I don't get upset about. My father has COVID right now. He has breakthrough COVID with the Pfizer vaccine. He went to my cousin's wedding last Sunday, 200 people indoors unmasked in Hamilton. Okay? I did not go. I was the single family member who did not go, and I took a lot of heat for it, but I just felt like I have 3 unvaccinated children at home. It was not the right decision for me. I went to the ceremony masked, said congratulations, and went home. Wednesday night into Thursday morning, my dad started with what he thought was allergies, a runny nose and watery eyes. He called me and he's like, no, I have hay fever. And I'm like, Dad, can you please get tested? He got tested positive for COVID. He's 75 years old, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, overweight. My mom is a type 2 diabetic, also with cholesterol and blood pressure issues, and they live together in Brandon Farms, okay? Thankfully, I did the right thing by encouraging them to get tested, so now that they're not out and Stop and Shop like they are at least 3 times a day, picking up bread and milk and cat food or whatever they do, they're home quarantining appropriately. My point is that COVID is in Hopewell, okay? And you don't know if you have it. My mom is quarantining appropriately because she could be carrying it. Right now she's testing negative. The mother of the bride, my aunt, also tested positive, okay? She also, thankfully, because she's vaccinated, only has the sniffles. My dad turned the corner today. He will probably be recovered in a few days with just the sniffles. But my whole point is it's local, it's here, it's my parents, okay? Thankfully, we did the right thing, so I didn't expose my 5-year-old children who are going to be going to kindergarten with a lot of these parents. I have an 8th grader also, and I have a future 6th grader. So I'm done. I just wanted to say that I just felt like I had to represent the parents that are texting constantly who are not here, saying that we just support your decision. And I understand the emotional part about masking. My son broke out in acne on his nose, and that's frustrating and that's sad, but number one, we would just want to protect his health. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Petrin.
Hi, Stephanie Bradley, Model Avenue in Hopewell. I was not going to speak tonight, but I feel inclined to do so. A couple things that I heard that really made me nervous. A, I do appreciate, again, like everybody else, all the hard work that you did. My daughter is going to be a sophomore. She really needed to return to school. She lost her father actually on September 11th of last year. And one of the things that really got her through it was being with her friends. I could only do so much, but that socialization was so important for her. And I thank you for the measures that you took to get our kids back in school. I'm not advocating against masks or for masks, but it is a personal choice. And so is the vaccine. And my concern is, what is promoting a vaccine? That's my conversation to have with my child. Not pressure from teachers, other students, parents, and I don't think my child should have to answer questions about her personal health. So I'd like to go on record saying that I don't want anybody speaking to my child about her vaccination status, why she may be or may not be vaccinated. I have a 21-year-old who took it upon herself. She's 21 years old. She got fully vaccinated. She was diagnosed with COVID 3 weeks ago. We did the responsible thing. We quarantined, we isolated. She had nothing more than that of probably a serious sinus infection. We're all very well aware that COVID is here. I think that's pretty apparent. I don't think anybody's denying that. I don't think anybody that chooses to not vax or wants the freedom of putting their child in a mask is anti anything. We're not in denial. My child's 15. She's of the mindset that, yeah, it sucks, but I'll do what I have to do, Mom. She'd rather be in school. She's not going to fight. She also doesn't want to be the kid that stands out for not wearing a mask or not being vaxxed or whatever the case is. It's the little ones. It's these little kids. They do not deserve this. They are at the least of risk for any serious repercussions of COVID. That is documented and documented and documented. We're comparing apples to peanuts. I feel terrible for the young lady that just came up and spoke that had 2 parents diagnosed with COVID at 75 years old. That is frightening. That is terrifying. But we are talking about our children, and we are teaching them to fear the air, people, touching, hugging. Just asking for choice and just being heard, I don't think is asking too much. I know it's an unpopular opinion, but it's still an opinion, and every parent has the right to make the decisions for what is right for their own child. So I just implore you to please take into consideration everybody's opinions tonight, and hopefully we can maybe come to some sort of agreement, because this is our future. These kids are our future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Bradley.
Hi, my name is Monica Brelia, and I live on Valley Road in Hopewell Township. And I just want to follow up with Kate, who is the nurse. I'm a physical therapist. I work in home care, and I've been working through the COVID since day one, especially when they didn't even have masks for us, and we were going in and out of people's homes. But I just want to state just a couple of things to follow up. I gown up for patients with COVID in their homes. I stand outside the car. There's actually an actual procedure that you're supposed to gown up and gown down. The other thing is that, children, adults, you're not taught how to gown up. In fact, the use of this mask, the minute you touch it, it's no good. Okay? So there's a way to take a mask on and off. If you see someone, a surgeon, mask up, there's a whole procedure on how they mask up, how they put their gloves on, how they tie one piece, tie another, have someone else assist them. So if you really think that if you really want to stop COVID, then you should be wearing the N95. When I go in someone's house, they have they have a nebulizer, they're using oxygen, particles are in the air, okay? I have to wear an N95, I have to wear a shield, I have to clean my hands, I have to wear gloves. I have to take things on and off in a certain procedure. Then I have to clean up before I go to the next house. I have to wipe all my stuff down, my computer, my book. It's a whole procedure. Now, and I just want to say one other thing, because I think you should really think about that as far as just wearing this mask. But I watched how we were handing candy around, and people were putting their hands in the same bag, and that, I didn't see anybody use disinfectant in between that. So we need a little education here, okay? And I'm also concerned mostly about the youngest children, because, this mask falls on the floor, a kid steps on it, pick it up, the teacher comes around, where's your mask? Okay? Then they put it on. Nobody's looking out for the child, whether or not the mask is clean, sanitary, okay? So there's a whole procedure, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Brelia.
Sorry.
Hello, my name is Eric Troutwine. I am a resident of Pennington for 14 years. I live on East Welland Avenue. My wife spoke earlier. I have a child entering 3rd grade, and I have a child in pre-K. I'm also heading into my 16th year as a teacher. I teach K through 8 health and PE at an independent school. I've been a coach for 18 years. I've coached 50 seasons of sports, including middle school boys, high school girls, and college women. I taught the entire year, this past year, in a mask all day, every day, and with sports. I think what's going on here is I think we're all kind of lost in this. I don't begrudge any of you that are in this room. I don't begrudge any parent that is concerned for their kid. I really, in one way, shape, or form. I'm just afraid when I hear a national crisis with mental health, it starts to make me a little bit nervous where we're headed with things. I understand that parents are concerned. We have a community member that we know that lost a child, not to COVID. There have been, as of today, there have been 2 COVID deaths in the state of New Jersey, just to clarify, ages 5 to 17. I just want to clarify that. I looked it up. That's up from the Department of Health. I didn't go find it somewhere else. And it's every parent's worst nightmare to lose a child, especially if they're at higher risk, as you mentioned. And we have friends that have lost parents to COVID, okay? And then we hear the stories about we did everything right and we still wound up with COVID. And the reason I don't begrudge any of you, especially Dr. Treese, you're in an impossible situation, and you're going to be an awesome superintendent. And the school board, I don't begrudge you either. I don't begrudge any independent school head. I teach at an independent school. And because the information is not coming directly from you, it's coming from the experts and people above us. And anytime I question it, I get told I'm not an expert, I'm not a virologist. I'm not, but I do know children. And I just feel the way we're headed with all these protocols, and we're going back into this cycle of we're treating kids of this as if they're permanently sick, or we're putting them on the same level as if they were a 70-year-old obese smoker. And it's hard for us, and in my age, I'm 42, I've got an older father who is now, I lost my mom in November to cancer, not to COVID. So he's by himself, so obviously I have that to worry about, and I also have my kids to worry about. And I also do, believe it or not, I do care about all of the parents that have children that are scared and they wear a mask, but I welcome them with open arms. I love them, they're different. We have parents that their child comes into our house wearing a mask because that makes them feel comfortable. It's my job to as a teacher, it's my job to make kids feel comfortable in one way, shape, or form. But I'm asking that we need to, I think, do a little more research because there's no data to support that the masks necessarily do anything beneficial. And the more we fall into these protocols, the more I'm worried about kids falling into despair. There were 2 suicides off of one structure in New York City. 2 kids jumped, pediatric age kids. One was 14, one was 18. I saw a kid. And those are just 2 off of one structure, and that's where my mind goes. But please, every parent that I see within the community, I empathize with you. I sympathize with you in one way, shape, or form, and I feel for all of you. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you, Mr. Troutwine.
Hi, I'm Todd Klein. I live on Reservoir Road in Hopewell Township. I'm just going to go through my thing because I don't want to repeat what everyone else has already said. On the local level, Wall Township School Board President Ralph Antonizio, he said that the district will not defy the mask order. They will push back against it. He cited the negative psychological and emotional impact mask mandates can have on kids. Furthermore, Monmouth County School District fired back at the mask mandate with a letter urging that the mask decision should be left to the local officials. What has this board done to represent its people? Has the board addressed the concerns with the Board of Education, State Board of Education? Because at the end of school last year, in the township, we had 859 cases. As of August 13th, we have 915 cases. That's only 56 additional cases, and that's township-wide. So at the local level, it doesn't seem like there should really be a mask mandate. I understand it's statewide, but I feel that this Board of Education should be pushing back towards the state government a little more than just saying okay and accepting it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Klein. Anyone else for public comment?
Good evening. My name is Neil McGrath. I live in Hopewell. Like someone who was on a few minutes ago, I was actually at home watching this on YouTube. I wasn't expecting much, but I felt like I needed to come down here and say something. Few things I've heard. Masks, do they work? Yeah, they do. And for people who say they're dangerous, cause health problems, I think that would come as a surprise to doctors, surgeons who've been wearing them for like a century. They would be very surprised to learn that they don't work and that they're dangerous. Are they perfect? No. Are you going to get in your car and not put on your seatbelt? No. They still work. They reduce the risk of infection. Do children get COVID? Yes. Are they as likely to get sick and die? No. They still get it. And it's false that children have not died. They have. And that rate is going up as the Delta variant spreads. Vaccines. People object to vaccines. Do you guys require vaccines for anything else to go to school? Mumps? Measles? Have you all objected to those?
Are they experimental?
But they're vaccines.
Yeah.
This is a vaccine. In any event, I'm here to say, follow the science, listen to the experts. I'm not an expert. I listen to the experts. I suspect very few of the people in the audience are experts. With all due respect, you guys are educationalists, school board members. I doubt you're public health experts. I'm sure you're doing your best. You're taking advice from the state, etc. But to be fair, nobody in this room knows as much as the CDC, the National Institutes for Health. Yeah, you two are laughing, right?
Okay, please refrain from the comments back and forth.
Apologies, my apologies. In any event, I'm here to say that if kids are allowed to go to school with the option of not wearing a mask, that just defies logic. I mean, I lived through this pandemic twice. I was in China in 2003. I saw the same stupid mistakes. When this one came to the US last year, I thought, well, thank God in 2003 we learned all about this. We're not going to make the same mistakes. Whew. A year on, China is open and back full strength, while we still have a pandemic, and we're still having the same arguments.
Thank you, Mr. McGrath. Anyone else for public comment? Do we have anyone in the, oh, there we go. I didn't know if you had anyone in the hallway as well.
My name is Tanya Kovacs. I actually grew up in the area, and my glasses broke before I came. So anyway, I'm here today to show my support for my friends who live in the district, but who have felt apprehensive to speak out because they have felt that they are in the minority here in Pennington. The good news is that we still live in America, and we're not ruled by the mob. We live in a republic governed by the rule of law. This rule of law, 21 U.S. Code 360 BBB-3, just so happens to state that no emergency authorized medical products can be mandated. This includes the PCR tests, vaccines, and masks. And yes, this also means in the school setting. If you didn't know this law prior, now you do. No excuses. I provided the information here, which I'll give you for your reference. I strongly urge you to follow the rule of law by making masks optional, or find yourselves in a position which requires legal counsel from which you have no leg to stand on. For example, Texas Supreme Court ruled yesterday that masks cannot be mandated. In addition, a recent court ruling out of Kentucky has ruled that the mask mandate is completely unconstitutional. U.S. District Judge Stickman ruled that even in an emergency, the authority of the government is not unfettered. The Constitution cannot accept the concept of a new normal, where the basic liberties of the people can be subordinated to open-ended emergency mitigation measures. Stickman ruled the mitigation measures unconstitutional. Excuse me. The rule of law has always been on our side. It's time you get behind these parents, not because their voices are the loudest, but because it's what our country stands for. Parents are now mobilized across the country and are taking action against those who do not follow the law and for those who don't create an atmosphere for our children to thrive under the law. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kovacs. Do we have anyone else for public comment? We're checking the hallway. All right, thank you, everyone. We appreciate all of your feedback and your comments. There's a lot of similar themes here. Dr. Treese, would you like to address any of those themes at the moment?
And I hope you don't mind if I hop around a little bit. I wanted to quickly get this slide back up because, and if we've been through a lot of names. I can't remember the gentleman, Mr. Lowe, I think?
Yes.
Well, someone brought up the concern about, I don't think I can I? I don't know that I can. Yes, I'm sorry, but I will read it to you.
Thank you.
I don't think I,
You can use it.
no. No, that's the widest it goes. I'm sorry. I know, I'm in that group too that can't see, but,
Did you do that?
yeah. It's all, yes. But the first phase is where we are right now, right? The masks are mandated for everyone. Phase 2 is what somebody showed concern of. And quite frankly, phase 2 is where we went too quickly, which is why we're in the position we are now. At some point, they said if you're vaccinated, you can take your mask off indoors. But then a lot of folks that were unvaccinated, and then the variants, and then it started spreading among the vaccinated, and now we're back where we started. Phase 2 requires that a lot of boxes are checked. One is that we're in green and stay there because we haven't stayed there yet. We dip in the green here in the state of New Jersey, we stay for a few days, and we go back to yellow. We need to be in green for a sustained amount of time, and the governor's mandate has to be lifted, and the health department needs to say, it's okay now to relax the mask again. But in that time, we need to decide who is eligible for that mask exemption and who isn't, because it still won't be safe in this phase, as it wasn't before, for those who are unvaccinated to be in those close proximities in our schools. So this is something that I'm giving you, this is where I'm hoping to go, right? And if for that, I would need parents to be willing to share that information and staff. If you're not, that's fine. Nobody is promoting or pushing or forcing anyone to get a vaccine. It was helpful if you do, right? But if you don't want to do that, I can't make you. And that information has to be voluntarily given to us, whether or not you're vaccinated, because it is not a mandated vaccine at this point in time. It is not. So that's why I wanted to respond to that question because it was out there. The other trends and things that have been discussed here, and quite frankly, every one of those things was discussed, and you can turn this off, Mr. Calavita. Every single one of those things was discussed by representatives from pediatricians that many folks in this community take their kids to and trust for all sorts of illnesses and health concerns with their children. From our health department, from the CDC, from world national organizations. I've read all the information that was sent to me from folks about these studies, and there have really only been 2 or 3 that you've sent me, one of which was debunked and had right on top of it from JAMA that it was revoked for being faulty research. The professionals talked about all of these things that you brought up here tonight and debunked every one of those things. They shared how that wasn't accurate, and they proved there was, and the data is out there that this works. We know that these masks work. That's the reason why our numbers went down. Now we're not doing those things, and they're back up. I can't convince you of that clearly, and I don't know that I'm going to even try tonight. I've done everything I can to get you the information that I have. But I can say this. You all selected me to be your superintendent of schools. And one thing I shared in the interview that I'm going to share now is that as your superintendent of schools, I follow the law. I follow the law that is given to me by the state. I have to do that because I am a leader of a public school. And when we don't follow those laws, and many of my colleagues in other districts may choose not to do that, the state can say, well, you're not following our rules, because there's rules in this country. As much as we say it's a free country, there's all kinds of rules we have to follow. Some of those rules are if you take federal or state funding, you have to follow those rules, or you have to give that money back. Money that we bought these HVAC systems with, money that we pay for these mental health professionals to come into our schools. That is the card they have to play, and they will play it. But that being said and that aside, if I felt like I was not making the right decision for your kids, I would be standing on this table and shouting just like those other superintendents are doing in other places. But I know that that's not the right answer. Choice is not the right answer for our kids who are unvaccinated. It's not the right answer where this virus is not in control. And if I bring kids in and they're infected, I have to shut down a classroom. I have to send your kid home for 14 days. I don't have a real viable option for remote now. So now your child's education is interrupted and they're at home. Now we're back going remote. I don't want that. We know we controlled for that last year. I want your kids in school. I'm not saying that we need to all be worried that our kids are going to die and catch COVID, but I do know with certainty that we're going to be shutting down and quarantining and going remote and closing our doors. That's what's going to happen, and that's something that can quickly be taken out of our hands if we have breakouts. And the health department is going to tell us to shut down. If you want your kids in school, this is a small price to pay, and we've been paying it. And believe me, I've been in all these buildings with your kids wearing masks. They take mask breaks. They're not wearing it for 8 hours. We have plenty of masks. We can give you a fresh mask. We've been getting through this, and the kids have been dealing with it. We've all been dealing with it. Is it comfortable? No. I have my fan today. I'm hot. I'm hot being a woman of a certain age and having my personal summer and a mask on. I am. I get it. And the air's, kicking on and off. I get that this is not comfortable, but I also know what we have to do in my heart of hearts to keep us in school as long as possible. And believe me, as soon as we can get to a place where we can go back to taking these off, I'm going to be right there with you. I will continue to fight, just like the board has been fighting, that if we do have to go remote, that the state gets on board and lets us do that. If we need to do that, if things get rough, we're having those fights now. That's the reason why we were able to get the change where we can at least do that with quarantine. As of a few days ago, I couldn't even do that. So I am fighting those fights for you, but I also have to do what I think is right. And I also have to do what is lawful. So I hope I covered all I need to cover with those questions. But that's what other than that, I can't really respond to something that's not accurate, that's not true science, that's not supported with all my research. So I'm just really not going to waste any more time tonight with going back and forth because I don't think I can convince you. So I'm going to have to just table all of that.
Thank you. No?
Are you going to follow OSHA rules and do the test every 2 hours? It's law. It's law.
I don't know if any law.
Sorry, we're not able to have a dialogue at this point, but any questions you have, you may certainly forward to us by email.
Yes. There was one more question that I didn't cover. Kat Fulmer asked about vaccination, making that available to people that may not have that availability to them through their health care. We are going to be reaching out to Capitol Health. They had talked about providing vaccines on site and being able to do that for us by bringing vans to us and things like that. I will open up those lines of conversation again, the texting, not the vaccine. Testing of students that need that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So much.
There were a couple other areas I just wanted to touch upon and see if we might kind of respond to the questions that were asked. There were other questions regarding the travel quarantine. I don't know if there was anything that we wanted to address there beyond what was already said.
Oh, I just asked if it was confirmed that you're quarantined for travel. You would get remote.
So if you're electing to travel on your own, no.
Okay.
Right now, it's just only for those students that are put in a quarantine by the health department, and then the district reaches out to you.
Will it be counted as absences? Like, when you get work at home? Like, how will it be counted as your allowable absences?
Yeah,
I know.
We can't. Yeah, I'm sorry, we can't take questions but please submit them to us by email. There were also questions regarding mask usage and how the district deals with that, and if we help, assist the students with how to properly wear their masks and so forth.
Absolutely. We'll continue to assist with that. And we also will provide masks if student needs them. If they come to get on a bus, if they drop a mask, we have plenty of masks around, and we will continue to order those and make sure we have them available on hand.
Thank you. And what about with regard to the question for students who may not be masked and how we deal with making them not feel different or less than in any way?
We'll offer them a mask. Again, we have those available to us. If you're inside of our buildings, you do need to wear a mask. And
if they have an exemption, I'm
if
sorry.
they have an exemption, I'm sorry?
If they have an exemption and they come unmasked with that exemption,
Right.
how will we help them to feel comfortable in the...
And Paula, you can help talk to this too. We've had some students that are already in this situation.
Yeah, so again, it's based on individualized medical issues. So we have a student who uses the plexiglass. We have another student who wears a shield, but we work with them to support them and their needs and also keep everybody protected on an individualized basis.
All right. If there are any questions or any things that we did not cover, again, please reach out by email. We're happy to respond. And thank you all for your input.
I just wanted to clarify one other point that was asked around the mask issue for kids who may have an exemption. I think how to socialize the kids in general around masks. If you could speak a little bit to that. So if you have a kid that's exempt and the rest of the class is not, maybe Paula, it's better to answer, but just...
Well, we both can answer, but she go ahead.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so like I said, it's individualized basis. Some of our students have maybe some very visible physical challenges. So, you know, we're in a community and our children are very, very accepting and understanding of differences for the most part. So we really haven't had too many issues. But if there were questions that, you know, the teachers, the nurses, we address it and deal with it. Again, on an individualized situation and basis.
Yes, Andrea.
Okay. I just wanted to make it clear that there's been a lot of talk tonight about people saying that we haven't heard them. I think there's a difference between hearing you and then doing what you're asking. Can you hear? I just want everyone to know that we do hear you. We hear what you're saying. That doesn't mean that we are going to be doing what you're asking. It means that we're hearing you and we're taking you into consideration. We thank you for your comments, your questions, and your challenges, but we do hear you. That needs to be made very clear.
Any other comments from board members? Okay, with that, we will move on to our consent agenda items. And I will ask for, I will request a motion to accept the items on the consent agenda.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? Motion carries. Mr. Sawicki, would you provide a report from Finance, please?
Sure. All the items were on consent. We had a meeting earlier this afternoon. Our primary focus related to ongoing work for the summer, but also starting to talk about items on our capital projects plans. Mr. Quinn has a running list of items, a multi-year plan, that we look ahead to see where we project. A lot of discussion about items such as HVAC and heating systems, boilers, things of that nature. One other item that has come up, we've spoken about it before, but there do seem to be some issues with the tennis courts over behind Timberlake. So Mr. Quinn is going to go ahead and update us in terms of where the overall budget planning process for this coming year goes. We talked a little bit. I think we're going to the committee members are going to take a little bit deeper look at some of the planning there, but some of it, having come up as new things or things that, we thought appropriate for a little bit broader discussion with the rest of the board at a future time.
Any questions for Mr. Sawicki? Seeing none, we will move on to the Personnel Committee report. Ms. Grillo.
Can I have a motion to move the non-consent items on the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Okay, so Personnel Committee met just before the meeting tonight, and we have a number of things for your approval. So first, we have the Director of STEM position, Scott Brattel, for your approval tonight, and he is here. I can't see him, but I know he's back there. We also have for your approval the pre-K to 5 special education supervisor, Dr. Beth Hoffman, who is also here tonight. We have for your approval the ECAs for the fall. So these are coaches, advisors, lunch staff. We also have a number of new positions and new staff. So we have an administrative assistant at AGS. We have an administrative assistant for the director of CNI. We have a number of paraprofessional hires, and we have a number of internal transfers. Due to those internal transfers, we actually have a few open positions. So we have a school psychologist position open at Timberlane. We have a virtual pathways program coordinator position and a vice principal position also at Timberlane. High school, just kidding, high school. Change that in my notes.
One more. You got worried, huh, Dr. Trees?
Someone's at home right now, very, very nervous. In addition, we have for your approval the HVASA sidebar agreement. So that's to move the pupil services and the curriculum and instruction out of the collective bargaining negotiations, which we've spoken about previously. So, Mr. Colavita, can I please have a roll call vote? Yes.
Mr. Herbert?
Yes.
Ms. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Mason?
Yes.
Ms. O'Reilly?
Yes.
Mr. Sawicki?
Yes.
Ms. Williams-Galliano?
Yes.
Ms. Driver?
Yes.
Ms. Linthorst?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Congratulations.
Yes, Dr. Patel and Dr. Hoffman, if you'd like to make any comments, you're more than welcome to.
Well, thank you all so much. I'm truly honored to join the administrative team here in Hopewell. I've been a school psychologist in the district for 13 years, working preschool through 5th grade. And this is obviously a very passionate community. And, you know, we have just remarkable families and students and everyone really working hard on behalf of our children. And so I'm honored and humbled to be the preschool through 5th supervisor working under the direction of Mrs. DiNardo, who is just wonderful and such an advocate for our children. So thank you all so much.
Thank you again. I kind of echoed Dr. Hoffman's kind of comments here. I couldn't thank you guys enough for everything you've given me. I'm going to my 8th year here in the district. I learn every day, from my colleagues. I learn every day from our students, our parents, and obviously I'm so thankful for the board and the experiences that I've had here, and looking to do hopefully more things. So I do appreciate it, and I will miss my CHS community. I will. Still be working with some of the staff and obviously some of the students, but I do appreciate it, and thank you again. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Education Program Committee. Ms. Long.
Can I have a motion and second to approve our one item of not on consent? So moved. Second. So I'm going to start with that, so we can do the vote, and then I'll go back to the other items. Ms. DiNardo came in to discuss the language learning disabilities class that started with our youngest students 5 or 6 years ago, and they are now aging into Timberlane. So because it's into a new school, we have to approve the class at Timberlane. So if anyone has any questions, I'm sure Paula could answer them, but it's pretty straightforward. This class just aging up. And then we need to vote on that one.
Mr. Herbert? Ms. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Mason?
Yes.
Ms. O'Reilly?
Yes.
Mr. Sawicki?
Yes.
Ms. Williams-Galliano?
Yes.
Ms. Driver?
She's in the back.
Not Ms. Grillo?
Yes.
And Ms. Linthorst?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, we had a busy meeting this morning. We also had Ms. Olzak and Mr. Lewin updating us on the AP seminar the AP Capstone, which is a 2-year program, which consists of 2 courses, the seminar and the research. It is not teaching content, is teaching more of the executive functioning skills, key academic skills, and then research and analysis, and ends with a research paper, and I guess the language they use is defending their paper at the end. So we just had an update on that, and they are looking to add a mentorship program and tapping into our help well that we already have in existence to look for mentors. The students get to pick their area that they want to do their research on, and they're going to hopefully be able to connect with the mentor to meet with them a few times to help them with their research. So we had that. We had Vicki over here doing double duty was talking about, which I think Mr. Patel is going to be kind of rolling out. Our Go Math is expiring, so we are looking at to pilot 2 math programs in this coming year. Bear Tavern and Hopewell Elementary will pilot something called Math Expressions, and Stony Brook and Tollgate Math and Vision. So those will be piloted this year, and then there'll be a lot more information on that as we move forward. And we have a calendar change to recognize the Juneteenth holiday. So June 20th will be a holiday. The way it falls this year on our calendar, we will not have school on the 20th. Our last day will now be the 21st. So, 22nd, sorry. Graduation on the 22nd. So that is a change to the calendar. And then lastly, I'm going to pass, I had a conflict this morning, so I was a little late to the meeting and missed the very first presentation. I came in the middle of it, so I'm going to have Vicki tell you about the Asian American and Pacific Islander curriculum presentation.
The Make Us Visible organization is looking to pass a bill for Asian American and Pacific Islanders in which school districts integrate their history into the curriculum, as well as provide instructional resources to do that. And so we had 3 members from the committee talk about the bill that is hopefully going to be passed in November.
All right. Any questions for Ms. Long or Dr. Politzis? Thank you. We'll move on to community relations and Mr. Mason.
Hey, good evening. This one's going to be really short. We had our meeting and we went over the for the webinar, for the return to school webinar. So the only thing I can say is if you get a chance, go online, check it out. It's informative, and I think it would be really good for a lot of people to check out.
Thank you. Policy, Mr. Herbert.
Hello. All right, so we have a few items here today. Item number 1, may I have a motion and second for approval of the listed policies for first reading? Thank you. So the policies for first reading, the first is 2610 Educational Program Evaluation. This was just revised to explicitly reference the use of multiple sources of data for monitoring student progress and evaluating the educational program, which is a requirement that's mandated by the NJQSAC, and we are already in a position to be doing this. The next 2 are related. One is use, possession, or distribution of substances for teaching staff members, and the other is for support staff members. Each of these was revised, both the policies and regulations, to incorporate language whereby in the event that the results of a medical examination and substance test results are not provided to the superintendent, the board will treat the test as a positive result for substances. So if a staff member has been determined to be under the influence of a substance during working hours, the policies also will now specifically provide for the option of a last chance agreement in addition to the consequences that are already enumerated in the regulations. So those were the changes for those, both of those policies and regulations. So any questions on those? Seeing none. Okay. Could I have a voice vote to approve these policies? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. The second item is we have two policies that are up for abolishment. The first is the Educational Improvement Plan, Policy 1521. This was mandated for special needs school districts and is no longer required and no longer applicable. The second is 1649, the Federal Families First Coronavirus Response Act. And the act was the reason for this policy, and it was only effective through the end of last year. So we will need a roll call vote to abolish both of these policies. Any questions or comments on these? Okay, Mr. Calavita. Excuse me? Oh, yeah, that's right. We need a motion. Can we have a motion for a roll to abolish these policies? Thank you. I know. Never going to live that perfection down, right?
It'll never be bought.
It's a high bar.
Mr. Mason.
Yes.
Ms. O'Reilly.
Yes.
Mr. Sawicki.
Yes.
Ms. Williams-Galliano.
Yes.
Ms. Driver.
Yes.
Ms. Grillo.
Yes.
Mr. Herbert.
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Ms. Linthorpe.
Yes.
Motion carries.
And finally, we have the item number 3 are all of the policies and regulations that are up for second reading. We went over these at the last meeting. They're all listed in your agenda. And does anyone have any questions on these? Okay, I would like to request a motion then to approve these policies for second reading and adoption. Okay, thank you. Mr. Calavita, again.
Mr. Sawicki.
Yes.
Ms. Williams-Galliano.
Yes.
Ms. Driver.
Yes.
Ms. Grillo.
Yes.
Mr. Herbert.
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Mr. Mason.
Yes.
Ms. O'Reilly.
Yes.
Ms. Linthorpe.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Those are all the policies.
Thank you.
No, that's
All right.
not me. I'm not the calendar person.
Review of board calendars. Like to.
The calendar under policies. The second
What?
reading
Oh.
and adoption of the
Do I have to do, is that mine? Is that for me?
Oh,
God.
oh, I'm sorry.
Oh. No one. I even read this agenda in advance. Look, I printed it out. All right, so what do we have to do with this? We did talk about it. Didn't we already pass this?
It's for first reading. We're going to,
Okay.
one final reading we usually do.
All right, so can I have a motion for the first reading, you say?
No, second.
Second reading and adoption of the revised district calendar. I do.
So moved.
Believe it. Oh. All right.
Do we want to explain what
May we
the
have a
change was
vote,
again? I don't
please?
even know what it was.
The Juneteenth, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, but we already, unless we need to explain it again, we did go through that.
Yep.
Under EdCom. All right.
All right. Think we're ready.
I'll do another roll call.
Yeah.
Ms. Williams-Galliano. Ms. Driver.
Yes.
Ms. Grillo.
Yes.
Mr. Herbert.
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Mr. Mason.
Yes.
Ms. O'Reilly.
Yes.
Mr. Sawicki.
Yes.
Ms. Linthorpe.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, now I'm done all the policies and calendar.
Moving on.
Yes, we will move on to the review of board calendars. I'd like to request a motion to approve the calendars for August and September, please.
Now we have to
Yep.
do it.
Okay, thank you. So, let's start with finance.
Just thinking the 14th. What time would you care? I think what we did tonight, just added to make the meeting tonight around, yeah. Yeah, good? 5 o'clock on the 14th? Beautiful. For what?
things to move, but personnel will be 6:15 on
Which is the regular and
the
which is
20th.
work? Okay. It's the 20th.
20th.
20th,
It is
6:15.
6:15.
Is that not good for you? 14th? Okay.
EdCom.
Are we sticking in the morning or are we going back and forth? It would be on September 20th. I mean, it would be 3 p.m. as we've been going, but if people prefer the 10 a.m., Actually, I don't know yet if I can do 10 a.m. because I don't know if I'm working Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday. Yes, let's do 3 o'clock for this one. Tell me my schedule like that.
Okay.
3 o'clock.
3 o'clock on the 20th.
Yeah.
Going once. All right. Community relations. Yeah, I think we're okay in terms of the Hopewell Express, right? We don't have an
16th is a
October.
holiday, though. I think that's the 16th. You're saying the 16th. That's a holiday. It's a holiday.
Okay.
I mean, is it? Does that help you, Rosetta, to do it on the 14th as well, the same day? It's one night. But the 14th, before finance? 3 o'clock?
3:30, 4 o'clock, what are we, 3:30, Jess is suggesting?
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
14th at 3:30. There's one other one. We missed
Policy.
one? Policy.
Are you looking at the September calendar? Okay, just checking. Oh, God. Yeah.
Do it. I mean, you could do it after finance. Do you get them out of the way? One
Okay,
day.
all right. Sure. What day it's going to be? It's like today.
We'll get you food.
You'll get me food, thanks. All right. Yeah, we'll do virtual.
Yeah, I was going to run through that too. Finance facilities virtual, policy virtual, community relations
virtual,
EdCom is in person, right? Or virtual, and personnel is here. The 20th at 6:15.
And do we need to just,
And I'm also going to just make everyone aware that on the 13th, there's an extra meeting in September. We're going to have a board goal-setting retreat. That'll be at 7 p.m. on the 13th. Probably here, but
yes, all right. So all in favor of accepting the
Mel is here.
calendars? Aye. Any opposed or abstaining? Motion carries. Just a quick mention to everyone, hopefully you saw in the green notes that it's time for the board self-evaluation, asking that all of those be completed by August 27th, and we will have Mr. Adams join us from NJSBA again to kind of go through the results. If you have any other questions about that, feel free to reach out. It's in the green notes. Yep. You should be able to. If not, I can help you locate it. And we will move into our second public comment session. Members of the public are invited to address the board on any matter for a maximum of 3 minutes during this portion of the meeting. You are asked to state your name, address, and municipality. In response to your comments, the Board of Education may respond or direct the superintendent to do so. The board may also opt to take the matter up at a future meeting so that the matter is researched by district administration. Members of the public who intend to participate in public comment, we ask that you sign in at the podium. This will assist us with our record keeping. Public comment is now open, and I think I also need to clarify that it will not be on any subject matter relating to Dr.
Yeah.
Treese's report.
It can be.
Oh, it can?
Yeah.
I thought we can only do that in the first session.
Yeah.
Okay.
Still
I
fine.
take it back. It can be on any matter for a matter of 3 minutes.
Okay, Catherine Fulmer Hogan, Hopewell Township. I'm sorry, you're probably wondering why I'm up here again. I was upset earlier as a mama whose kids have faced all sorts of discrimination in this community at large for lots of reasons, for all the boxes we checked. And so I misquoted my statistic, and I can't let misinformation just stand out there. That makes me bananas. So what I was actually quoting was that children, black children specifically, represent 65% of child deaths from the coronavirus, while representing only 15% of the youth population. I had to fix it. So.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hogan. Okay. Anyone else for public? Oh, Ms. Ham.
It's me, Kate Ham, Reed Road, Pennington. I'll sign in after I'm done talking. I'm not here to debate masks or no masks. I'm not here to debate vaccines or no vaccines. I am here to support mental health of our students and our staff. And my question is, after looking at the presentation, where potentially in November, we go to a mask optional for those who are vaccinated, both staff and students, I want to know what this district has in place to address the onslaught of HIB investigations that are going to occur as a result of you're wearing a mask, you're not wearing a mask, and things that are going to happen among students. Unfortunately, my family has gone this route, the path of HIB investigations for the last year, and I will say it was not a positive one. I would never want any family to have to experience what we have experienced. So I want to know what this district has in place to appropriately address the needs of everyone involved in the HIB investigations that are to come.
Thank you, Ms. Ham. Okay. Dr. Treese will address your question, comment, please.
Yeah, I think you have to finish taking all the public comments or
I'm
not.
sorry. Are there any other folks for public comment first? No? Okay. Seeing none, there we go.
Okay, I did want to respond to that. One, we don't know when we'll be able to go to that option, if at all, this year. I'm hoping sometime, but I don't have a date. If you would see on the slide deck, it says to be determined, and there's a lot of boxes we have to check before we get to anywhere close to that. And as any time with our students, we will work toward that together. I don't anticipate a bunch of HIBs or kids being abusive to each other regarding who has a mask on or who doesn't. Just like we haven't seen a vast amount we haven't seen a large number of issues with students who currently can't wear masks for whatever reason. We work with our students to make sure that that's not happening. And if there is an issue, we absolutely want you to reach out to us and it will be addressed. But I don't anticipate that. And again, that timeline, I don't know where that is going to fall. But certainly November, I haven't put any month on it because I don't know when that could be.
Thank you. All righty. I would like to request a motion to move into executive session to discuss matters regarding a staff member. No action will be taken.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Thank you.